Good morning, Sai Ram.
गणानान्त्वा गणपतिगुं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पतानः शृण्वन्नोतिभिः प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती धीनामवित्रजवतु गणेशाय नमः सरस्वत्यै नमः श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम् शम्भवे नमः नमस्ते अस्तु भगवन् विश्वेश्वराय महादेवाय त्र्यम्बकाय त्रिपुरान्तकाय त्रिकाग्निकालाय कालाग्निरुद्राय नीलकण्ठाय मृत्युञ्जयाय सर्वेश्वराय सदाशिवाय श्रीमन्महादेवाय नमः। नमो भवाय च रुद्राय च नमः शर्वाय च पशुपतये च नमो नीलग्रीवाय च सितिकण्ठाय च नमः कपर्दिने च व्युक्तकेशाय च नमः सहस्राक्षाय च शतधन्वने च नमो गिरीशाय च सिपिविष्टाय च नमो मीढुष्टमाय च सुमते च नमो ह्रस्वाय च वामनाय च नमो बृहते च वर्षीयसे च नमो वृद्धाय च संवृध्वने च नमो अग्र्याय च प्रथमाय च नमः आशवे चाजिराय च नमः शीघ्रियाय च सीभ्याय च नमः ऊर्व्याय च वस्वन्याय च नमः स्रोतस्याय च द्वीप्याय च नमो ज्येष्ठाय च कनिष्ठाय च नमः पूर्वजाय च परजाय च नमो मध्यमाय च पगल्भाय च नमो जघन्याय च बुद्धियाय च नमः सोभ्याय च प्रतिसर्याय च नमो याम्याय च क्षेम्याय च नमः उर्वर्ज्याय च खल्याय च नमः श्लोक्याय चावसान्याय च नमो वन्याय च कक्ष्याय च नमः श्रवाय च स्रवाय च नमः आशवे आशुषेणाय चाशुरधाय च नमः शूराय चावभिल्दते च नमो वर्मिणे च वरुधिने च नमो बिल्मिने च कवचिने च नमः श्रुताय च श्रुतसेनाय च ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Let us all be together. Let us all be nourished together. Let us all work together with great vigor. May our studies shine and illumine our intellects. May we not hate each other. Let there be peace, peace, and peace. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Sai Ram, Hari Om, Namaste. Greetings to everybody on the call. We are studying Sri Rudram and currently in the 6th Aunvakam of Namakam.
Sairam, are you recording?
Yes, I am recording. Thank you. As we enter into this, we are studying the context of omnipresence, omniscience, and omnipotence in time. And the dimensions within this space and time. We studied space and we are also studying now the time. And these are not independent dimensions of each other, because there is time in space and space in time, and we cannot separate this. This is totality, and we are studying kind of one dimension, but the totality in a dimension, and the totality of how other dimensions also exist in one dimension. I hope that makes sense to you. If it doesn't make any sense, just be present, and it will make sense when the right time comes. No pun intended. So fundamentally, we were discussing last 2 weeks how there is action in time and how there is space in time, and the action in time is what we refer to as karma, simply the action, not to be confused. Oh my God, what happened here? Sairam, are you all there?
Yes, Anna.
Yes,
Yes,
we are here.
yes,
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, we are here.
because
yes, we are here.
Yes, we are here.
okay, thank you. Because something said someone else signed in, and so I got confused. So, okay, anyway, action in time, confusing. And unfortunately, it's too much for me to manage this stuff and also be present to the. Hopefully, brother Branimir will be back next week or Usha will be back. I don't know if Usha is still there. But anyway, so we are studying the context of action in time as karma and action in time in the relative world, action in time in the personal world, action in time in the absolute sense, if that makes sense. What we are studying last week we were the first this Aunvakam, the sixth Aunvakam has two different chapters. The first chapter is called Suktam, has 10 yajus in it, and the first 5 yajus actually the context of what we were talking as different levels of awareness in time. Cheshta, Kanishta, Purvaja, Paraja, Madhyama, Apagalbha, Jaghanya, Budhniya, Sobhya, Pratisarya, Yam. Then the next 5 suktas is about the action in time. Yamya, Kshemya, Urvarya, Khalya, Slokya, Avasanya, Vanya, Kaksha, Srava, Pratisrava. Now you see, uh, this is what makes you really connect to the meaning of the mantras. When you actually kind of get all these names just flowing, then you will know, oh, then you are actually studying. This is what's called swadhyaya. It is adhyaya. You are actually studying. That's why it's called Veda Adhyayana. Veda is Adhyayana. Veda is never called as, there are two types, Veda Patha, Veda Adhyayana. Veda Patha means simply chanting Veda. Veda Adhyayana means actual study of the Veda. And actual study of the Veda is actually self-study. This is a self-study. It is not the study of somebody else or some other matter or mind. This is study of the self. When you connect to yourself as awareness in time, when you connect to yourself on how the actions are impelled, how are the actions impelled in time, then we will connect to these mantras very profoundly. Yes, that is what is the point of this yajna, Rudra yajna. The point of all of this is to connect, to be aware of all of this in our own selves, how it is happening, and how it is also happening in the relative world, how it is happening in your personal world. And in absoluteness, there is actually no separation of the individual self from the relative self. Now, last week we concluded with Brother Kumar asking the question, is karma time bound? That karma which is eternal, or that dharma which is eternal and not time bound, is what is called Sanatana Dharma, the eternal right action. Once you use the word eternal, then is there a time component to that?
Yes, the absolute time.
The absolute time. What is absolute time?
Well, the time that it's always present,
If
that
it
don't
is,
have.
if it is always the time that is always present.
That's eternity.
Eternal, I think eternal is beyond the time.
Okay, yeah, okay. No, that's why I paused there, because I asked somebody like Kumar, I think asked last week, is dharma bound by time? And then we said, we use the word Sanatana Dharma, the eternal right action. Is eternity expressed in time as minutes, seconds, hours?
No.
No, not
No,
in
Saira.
minutes
No,
and
Saira.
second. No.
Okay. So now what we are talking as the time, what we are bound by the time, is that time. Now you see, now this is where we are entering into the second suktam of this Aunvakam. The first 10 yajus were all talking about the relativity of Jeshta, Kanishta, Purvaja, Paraja, Madhyama, Apagalba, Jaghanya, Buddhya, Sobhya, Pratisarya, Yamya, Kshemya, Urvarya, Khalya. All those things are now making you realize the relative aspect of the time. Then we talked about the Brahma, Karma, Dharma, Brahma or Brahman. Now the paradox, apparent paradox, because this is not paradox. The apparent paradox is we are used or bound by this thing that is running our lives constantly in in a relative order called the time, as it relates to what? As it relates to the seconds, the minutes, the hours, the days, the months, and the years, and the age, and all of that stuff. But once you use the word Sanatana Dharma, the eternal right action, is that now bound by relativity?
No, for
No,
relativity. No.
no.
Yes. So is it measured in, is it in itself measured in the context of hours, seconds, days,
No,
etc.?
no,
Okay. Because it is
eternal.
and ever.
Brother Shekhar, the question to ask maybe would be, when does time start and when does time end?
Okay. Who is that, please?
This is Sonal.
Okay, Sonal. Yeah. So when does time start? When does time end? Now, this I'm coming to that point about, then fundamentally one has to ask, what is time? Now, I don't want to bore you all with all this incredible complex subject of how Einstein started the context of the relative time, and how people, the incredible scientific minds, continue to explore this dimension of time, and how do actually photons exist in the context of that space and in the context of the relative force, and all of this is the matter of a study in itself, related to quantum physics, relative to theories of relativity, energies, forces, masses, gravitation, all of this stuff, and is still being studied. But what should I call it? Unimaginable or incomprehensible is that these principles of eternity of time in action, related to movement of the particles, movement of the thought, movement in space with relative forces applied to the thought, and in its absolute presence of consciousness, have all been already expounded in the Veda mantras. It is beyond the scope of this speaker's ability to correlate and etc. But the the little this mind has studied about all these theories existed describing time, everything that we're talking about is all about the movement of thought. in the consciousness, and that movement that is created by interaction of two things in our body or in our self, relative self. One is the sun, the intelligence, and the moon, the mind. Everything is and impelled by the senses, and therefore the senses are the gravity or the force, the pull, the intellect and the mind. All of this creates time. Each of us have to look into that when you're present in that dimension. And then you shall know how this incredible demonstration of human mind in flesh and blood of a Vivekananda, of a Ramanuja, Srinivasa Ramanujam, an Adi Shankara, a Martin Luther King, a Jesus the Christ. These are all examples of human flesh and blood demonstrating that they're not limited by time. So how did they do that? Right. Now, that's for all of us to contemplate on. We're coming back to the next, the second Aunvakam of the sixth, the second suktam of the sixth Aunvakam is now going into Nama Ashushenaya Chashurathaya Chanama Shuraya Chavabhindate Chanamo Varmine Chavarudhine Chanamo Bilmine Chakavachine Chanama Shrutaya Chasruta Senaya cha. This is the second suktam of the sixth Aunvakam. What we are now looking at will be, I am sure, pretty confusing. We just went through, it's a beautiful slide put together by Margaret, how incredible it is. The Brahma, Karma, Dharma, Brahma, the omnipresence, the omnipotence, omniscience, how this whole time in action with cause and effect are happening. That is the summary of the first suktam of sixth Aunvakam. Then we are coming into this. Ashushenaya. Asu-shena means armies. Sena means armies. Asu-shena means armies moving fast. Ashurathaya. In chariots or in a chariot that is rattling forth. It's not a plural, it's a singular. In chariot that is rattling forth. Now another chariot introduced here, yeah? Another chariot is happening here. Where did we have the other chariot? Which Aunvakam has the other chariots? Hello? Everybody here?
Yeah, fourth.
Fifth.
No, fourth Aunvakam. Thank you. Once in a while, I just ask question because I want to see if somebody is there on the other side listening. Most of the time, I'm talking to myself. Feels like it. Now, there is another Ratha that is introduced here. Shuraya, that is valiant. Please mute, sir. Thank you. Once in a while, I just ask question because I want to see if somebody is there on the other side. Sairam, somebody is playing my own video, I guess. This is so distracting, unfortunately. Thank you. Please mute. Thank you. Okay, Sairam. Suraya. Suraya is the valiant. Shura means the warrior. Avabhindate. Avabhindat means the one who destroys enemies. Varmine means one who is a shield. Varudhine, that hosts success or a great home. Bilmine, helmeted. Kavachine, armored. Shruta, renowned and ancient. Srutasena, whose armies are in creation are all extolled. Shruta Sena. Shruta, one who is extolled. Shruta Sena, whose armies are extolled. What is the question that comes to this mind when you read the meaning of all of this in this Aunvakam second suktam? The immediate question that one asks is, what is this to do with the time? And what is this stuff about all of a sudden armies destroying enemies and helmeted, armored, renowned, ancient? Shouldn't, do we get that question? Yes, I got that question. I wondered, what is this to do with, first of all, this Rudram or the Shiva, whoever we are talking about, and the Shiva as in who we know as the Shiva, the guy who is sitting on a mountain and chilling out with snakes and everything around. What is that to do with this? And what is this to do with the context of time? This is the question. This is what's called the enquiry. Don't get intellectualized, don't get trapped into intellectualism, but yet be present. Look at that. See that. And that's why mantras are called, mantras came from drashta. Mantra drashta. Drashta means seeing. Mantra drashta means the one who sees the mantra, not intellectually analyze the mantra, but actually be seeing and present to the mantra. Not uh, uh, not the burden of knowledge with all the scriptures and everything that parrots eloquently on a stage. That's not what is about these mantras. These mantras is really about seeing the mantra, being present to the mantra. And please don't take that as an instruction. Please don't take that as, oh, if I don't do that, am I doomed? Please don't get into that. Please, that is not the purpose of why I am saying this, because sometimes people misunderstand, saying, oh, that means if I don't understand, if I don't see, then all of this is used. That is not what I'm saying. Please don't misinterpret. Please don't take that as a prescription. It is basically a pointer. That is really where the supreme bliss is present. But that doesn't mean if you did not get it, you are useless or you are fit for nothing. Nothing like that, please. That is not what I am trying to imply here. It is a journey. It is truly a journey inward, and it will happen in its own time. But you have to be focused, and you have to put that as the goal of all of this Veda chanting. Then the real effect of the Veda chanting happens in the context of what its purpose is. Now let's come back to this. Asusena, all pervading armies. Ashuratha, the eternal chariot. Ashuratha. I already gave a clue. What is this Ashuratha? Anyone has any insight into that, please?
Sairam, is it body?
Yeah, there is no wrong answer. I'm not going to say yes or no. That is fine. That is what you connected to, brother. So I'm not going to say, I'm not going to qualify your answer. Let me put it that way. But anybody else? Ashuratha.
Consciousness.
The chariot of desires. I don't.
Okay. Has anyone connected to any other ratha? We talked about two rathas before, right?
This is controlling the senses.
No.
Rathas?
I'm trying to get
Shiva.
you. What we studied two rathas before, yes?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What is the first ratha?
First, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna.
Krishna and Arjuna. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
That is one ratha. What is the second ratha we studied?
Shiva went to
Yes.
to destroy
yeah.
Tripuras.
Tripurasura Samharam. Yes. Okay. Shiva going and taking care of the Tripuras, the destroying the three cities. Yes. Now, is there any other ratha that anyone has connection to?
The wheel of time.
Yes. And the wheel of time. Who is running that chariot?
Surya, son of God, God of sun.
Very good. That is the ratha that we are talking about in this. Because what are we studying in this Aunvakam?
Time.
Yeah. So how is the time being run? How is time existing to begin with, the relative time?
Sunrise and sunset, and the movement of the sun.
The movement.
Or the movement of the planets around the sun.
Birth and death.
No, don't go into birth and death. Let's be practical. Let's look at it outside. Yes.
Days and night.
Yeah, days and night. So how is all of that happening? Because of only one thing.
The movement.
Sun.
Motion of
It's
the
only happening because of the sun. Yes. Yes. Answer is yes, right? It's happening only because of the sun. Now this sun that we are referring to in this second suktam is mythologically or purportedly, here is the beauty of Sanatana Dharma, is that it makes it into, it takes the absolute, which is not an object of experience, but for the relative mind to concentrate on it and to connect to it, and more importantly, to be mind to be inspired by it, gives this metaphors and the analogies that helps you be present more profoundly. Now, just you see, what we just talked about in the context of those yajus, the 5 yajus, relate very beautifully to the eternity of time, which is an oxymoron, related to the movement of this incredible thing that is sustaining, protecting, nourishing, evolving, resolving, dissolving, everything that you can relate to in an absolute consciousness sense is all embedded in this so-called, what the atheists and the people who cannot connect to it call it as just a ball of fire which is burning itself as a mass. But Sanatana Dharma says this is actually if you want to say what God is absolutely present right in front of your eyes, it is the Sun God. Because in this Sun God, by relating to this Sun God, you can connect to everything that is described as absolute Brahman, except one thing, that the absolute Brahman is not an object of experience, but the Sun God is even more qualified, because the Sun God is an experience with the senses and the mind and the intellect, therefore potentially even more profound than what we define as God, and hence in Sanskrit called Pratyaksha Daivam, direct evidence of God. Yes. How many of us, when we get up in the morning and you see, experience this light and say, God, thank you? How many of us, when we put our foot on the earth that is helping you to walk on this, say, thank you, Mother, for allowing me to step on you? You don't have to chant any suktas, mantras, which you don't even understand what you're chanting. But only the presence of the gratitude to this Sun God. And hence, the Sanatana Dharma makes it very practical for people. When they get up in the morning, they look at the Sun God, they thank him. The whole Sandhya Vandanam that is prescribed as a ritual to do every day, 3 times a day at least, or chant the Gayatri Mantra, is in gratitude to this Sun God. When you apply everything in this mantra now, what we're talking about, the armies moving, or the rays of the sun, so-called the photons, the neons, or whatever you call them, look at them as armies moving down in space and creating this time. Because of this wheel of time, or the chariot of time, and in this chariot of what we are calling as the sun, that is moving at a speed of, or apparently moving at a speed of 27 million miles in one muhurta, which is equivalent to 48 minutes. Now, what I am talking about is not something that is only expounded when people started measuring the speed of light. This has been described to a split second time interval in Veda mantras. And then there is this beautiful suktams. And where is my brother Arun and Kusuma? Mahanyasam. In Mahanyasam, there is a beautiful description of this movement of this ratha. I was hoping Kusuma would say, oh, apratiratham. There is this beautiful suktam called apratiradha suktam, which goes like Ashushashano Vrushabho na yudmo ghana ghanascharshan shobhanascharshaninam sankrandaneno nimisha eka virashatagum sena ajayatsakamindaha indraha sankrandanena nimishena jishnuna yutkarena duschavanena drushnuna. Now I don't want to burden you with all these mantras, but I will give you the essence of that, what is called as apratiradha kavacham. The words are apratiradha kavacham. Aprati means redaction. Now you see, We are all thinking time is only moving forward. No, that is exactly what we experience. Time is only moving forward. This is what for thousands of years the scientific world has believed, that the time is only moving forward. But the time is not actually moving forward, because the sun is neither, this sun and his chariot, whatever, they're not moving forward. The sun is not even moving. Hello. Apratiratha. So the sun by himself is timeless. But yet what we perceive as his movement as the time, then we get crushed by this wheel of time, because our relative minds are constantly operating by this, crushed by this wheel of time. So this Kavacham is talking about Apratiratha. Means the chariot that is not moving forward, but actually moving backward. I don't want to bore you with all of, but you can, what I'm talking, please, you can go find it out yourself. The scientists have been trying to create time machines, and the time machines where the experiments have been going on for hundreds of years, if not probably much longer, on how to actually still the time, or even there are experiments going in material physics and also in quantum physics on how to actually accelerate the particle movement, that the time doesn't exist, to put it through incredible forces of gravitation, etc. Sankrandanena nimishena Jishnuna yutkarena dushchavanena drushnuna tadindrena jayata tatsahadvam yudho naraishu hastera vrishna. And when I was chanting this particular sukta, it occurred to me, oh my God, in this Apratiratha suktam, they are describing how you can actually stop the time and become timeless and eternal. Not in the context of a physical body, and that's not what I'm talking about. Not to kind of do this to gain some, but this is what we're talking in a spiritual context. This is called Apratiradha. And this Apratiradha suktam is chanted in Mahanyasam as kavacham, as protection. And then this description in this suktam, which when time comes, maybe when time comes, I will explain what these mantras and mahanyas are and how they are related to this, connecting to this eternity within you. And when you chant these mantras and connect and you are present in this awareness, how you truly yourself are at the center of the consciousness of awareness. And that center of awareness consciousness is called Rudra. Therefore, when you chant this Mahanyasam, you are in the center of the awareness, and therefore you are the Rudra. And hence it says, Na Rudro Rudra Marchayet. I hope I am not burdening you with all of this. But what I am trying to really impart here is incredible eternal wisdom. And this Apratiradha Suktam is in Rigvedam. And who knows when that Rigvedam has 103 chapter has been expounded by these mantra drastas, the rishis, which is actually talking about a time machine. Apratiradha kavacham. Ratha is movement. Apratiradha, still not moving, but yet in that stillness and in lack of that movement, which is the time, you become timeless. Timeless means kalatita. Kalaya namaha, kalaya namaha, kalatitaya namaha, kaladarpadamanaya namaha. We are all chanting these mantras to this divine, beautiful Bhagavan. But have we ever contemplated on what is kala kala? What is kalatita? What is kaladarpadamana? What is all this stuff describing him? Why are we even invoking time in the context of describing Bhagavan Baba in his 108 names? And of course, those mantras are not just about Bhagavan Baba. They are describing the absolute. They're not just about the 5'3" Baba that we are thinking is who he is. And then become fanatic and say that if I am a Sai devotee, I am the most realized. That is another level of ignorance. Because this Baba is not that 5'3" afro-haired Indian human being. And this is eternity, eternal, timelessness, protection. And now when you imagine this chariot of Bhagavan Surya, then you can go study it. It is called Eka Chakra Radham. It's one wheel. And you can go study this. This is probably the homework. How beautifully everything is laid out in the context of the movement in time as it relates to, we talked about two, the movement of the sun relative to the body and the moon, the mind. The body here is the earth and the moon is the mind, and the intellect is that. How this intellect in you is now moving with respect to, or the thought is moving as a combination connection to time. Now when you look at these mantras or the sukta in the second suktam, the armies moving fast are the rays or the particles created from this glowing sun. Ashuratha means the ever-pervading chariot. Shura avabhindatecha. Suraya avabindhate. Now what is this? What we are talking about, the valiant and the destroying of enemies. The valiant and the destroying of enemies from a physical context is that it is the experience of millions of, or probably even more than millions of organisms and people, that the rays of the sun has the power to cure the diseases associated with the skin and the heart and the eye and the perception. Undeniable that the sunlight cures the people that suffer from depression. The sunlight cures the people of dermatological disorders. Why does it cure dermatological disorders? Because the sunlight helps you manufacture vitamin D in the body. You can go now figure out what exactly is that spectrum of light that is doing that. There are people that are doing all those experiments so that they can have LED lighting, all kinds of other types of lighting. And now there is a lot of crazy people going around. If you have all these LED lightings with this spectrum, then you will cure all. I'm not saying they're crazy means they're not um, it's another type of mania that is occurring. But why do you need all of this stuff if you can actually go stand in the sun when you are able to and get exposed to that sun? It cures the diseases. The vitamin D is not only about diseases of the skin. Vitamin D is now proven to be involved in curing of so many fundamental diseases associated with cardiovascular, circulatory, neurological, cancer. And many drug companies have taken vitamin D, converted into new chemical entities that are called the drugs. This is all proven stuff. But asushenaya cha ashuradhaya cha suraya cha avabhindate cha. And this beautiful sun and the sunlight is a shield of protection and a home of success, because it gives a healthy mind and a healthy intellect, the clarity of thought and execution. Varminecha, varudhinecha, bilminecha, kavachinecha, a helmet and an armor of protection. Srutayacha, srutasenayacha. Now you see, brothers and sisters, this is this 5 yajus description of this sun and the chariot and the timeless protection is an executive summary, and everything in this is now expanded in the Vedas as the enquiry into the sun, and that enquiry is Aruna Prashna. Like Rudra Prashna, there is Aruna Prashna. Aruna Prashna. And in that Aruna Prashna, there is incredible expansion about how seasons occur, how time occurs. And there is a description of all these things called Valakilyas, that those that praise the glory of the sun god. There is about Gandharvas, there is about Apsaras, there is about every single aspect of demigods, time, sacrifices in rituals, everything expounded in more than 132 Anuvakas of this beautiful Aruna Prashna. And when Bhagavan gives this speaker the permission or the inspiration to do so, that would be a major study into the next level of Rudra Prashna, is Aruna Prashna. And hence when they do the Rudra Yajna, anytime there are 2 things that are preambles before you do this Rudra, Atirudra Mahayajna. Every day we used to follow this protocol. We chant Mahanyasa and we chant Aruna Prashna. Both are chanted before when you start the ritual of Abhishekam or ritual of Ekadas Rudra Abhishekam, etc. Why? Because it prepares you in awareness to undertake this beautiful Ekadas Rudram. And then once you have this awareness of presence to all of this thing, it's beautiful. Shiva Sankalpam, Purusha Suktam, Apratiradha Kavacham, Pratipurusham, Netram, Tvamagne, Astram. These are the 5 different components of grounding, getting grounded in awareness. So we are concluding this 6th Aunvakam, 2nd suktam today, understanding the relative time as it relates to age, awareness of time in age, awareness of time in the context of action, and then the timeless in action, the timeless in protection, or the timeless protection. And then you see how beautifully, instead of looking at the sun as another planet in our planetary system, it's just a globe burning itself, then you connect to that sun and say, there are so many examples drawn from that, observing that sun god, that connect to the transformation power, saying that this is how beautifully Swami says in some discourses, how that particular sun is not only protecting from all these diseases, but not only invoking the life in so many beings, inspiring the thought in so many beings, unconditionally, doesn't discriminate whether this is a weed plant or whether this is a crop plant, has no judgment. All of this is basically described in another beautiful thing from Ramayana called Aditya Hridayam. And there it says, Aditya Hridayam Punyam Sarva Shatru Vinasanam Jayavaham Japen Nityam Akshayam Paramam Sivam. All of that is summarized from this. Ashushenaya Chashuradhaya cha Suraya cha Avabhindate cha Varmine cha, all this Varudhine cha Bilmine cha Kavachine cha Shrutaya cha Shrutasenaya cha. Shruta means the one who is extolled, the most eternal one, extolled through Vedas. Not only him who is extolled in the Vedas, Shruta Senayacha, also all his armies are extolled by the Vedas. What are those armies that are extolled by the Vedas? And even Vasunam Sthane Swatejasa Bhani, Rudranamaadityanagasthane, Swatejasa Bhani, Vasunamaadityanagasthane, Swatejasa Bhani. Now all these mantras are from Aruna Prashna. All these aspects of different Ekadasha Rudras, all these Gandharvas, then all these different types of fire, Yajnas, everything is embedded in this Shruta as Shruta Sena. I will pause there. We are 4 minutes to concluding. I did not give you all any opportunity to contribute today. So let me pause there, and if you have any questions, please put it in the chat if you don't want to ask. Otherwise,
Sairam, enable the chat, please.
enable the chat. I don't know how to do that. Okay. Can you type now?
Now say disable.
Okay. You have to forgive me. I'm unable to do that. Or let's see here. Oh, okay. Everybody, everyone, publicly, private. All right. It's enabled now. Please. We have 3 more minutes. Is everybody blissed out or what?
It's
So, Sairam Shekhar, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, Arun.
So you mentioned the sun and the creation of vitamin D and healing of dermatological diseases. But somewhat a bit behind the scenes, the sun, powers photosynthesis and
Yes.
movement of the wind and the water rain cycle.
Yes.
And almost every cycle that contributes to our being is driven off the solar energy at some level. Just thought I'd mention that.
Yes. I was expecting that to come from Arun. What he's saying is, you haven't described all the full potencies of Arun, and that is the comment from Arun. And so yes, everything that you said and much more to be, everything is created in the context of the presence of sun. It's so incredible.
Is the personal time perception?
Is the personal time you have to, can you
Like,
please ask the question? Okay, is the perception creating time? Is that the question?
No, it's like when you say relative time, before you associate with minute, hours, and all this stuff. But the personal time, sometimes we thought or we feel that the day is go very slow or the time is go very fast. Is the personal time associate with the personal perception?
Yeah, these are observations done by Einstein several years ago, where if I remember my physics lessons correctly, he looks at very beautifully. If you are sitting in a moving object, time moves relatively slow. But if you are still and watching a moving object, time moves fast. All of these things you can go apply it in your own awareness and see how time moves. If you are in the thought, if you are engrossed in the thought, how the time moves. And if you are watching the thought, how the time moves. If what is moving is the thought, then are you moving with the thought, or are you watching the thought move? And now go experiment with the time. You will find it yourself, Cecilia.
Excellent. Thank you.
And now all of this described by various ways of meditation. Vipassana meditation, that meditation, this meditation. How many different ways people are experimenting with how the time moves with observing breath, and how the time moves with observing thought. And you cannot, because you cannot observe a thought, you can at least observe the breath, and therefore it calms down the system. And when the whole system is in this below the surface of observing the surface tension, they call it surface tension in physics. There is tension at the surface. But if you move below the surface and go deeper from the surface, then there is no surface tension. Okay. Life exists in deep in sea when sun rays not able to penetrate, and life exists purely depends on earth. Okay. Thermal vent. So yeah, so there is also the connection between the sun and the temperature or the heat in the living beings. And all of this, it is impossible or impractical to describe this whole being called the sun. But you get the essence of it in 5 yajas. What was the HW? What is that HW? I'm sorry.
Homework.
Oh, what is the Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, the homework is really, we already are talking about the homework. One of the homework is is about really next week. Try to look at how time slows down with when you are in the thought, or when you are observing the thought, when you are observing the breath, and when you are not observing the breath. These are beautiful self-experimentation you can do with yourself. And of course, what I have not expanded into this whole thing. Sairam, that would be the homework. And also, you don't need to send the homework to me, but really look at the context of the sun as timeless protection in time. Any other questions? We are 5 minutes over. We'll close.
Saram, I also see the sun protection, like because of the rays used to dispel the darkness, and looking like at darkness like the enemies or the disease. that takes me to the health and the clarity of not having any other infections or any other type of affections due to the sun rays.
Yes, there is a, if you want to really get into understanding of the sun, if you go to that Sai Atirudram YouTube, we have studied the Surya Upanishad, and there are a number of videos on expounding the every single aspect of the relative, the personal, and the absolute sun aspect, Surya Upanishad. You can, when you, at your leisure, you can go watch those videos. Sai Atirudram YouTube channel. And the fundamental aspect of the vision, there is also called an Upanishad called Chakshushopanishad, means seeing closely. That is related to, again, the sun god. And it goes like Namastejo Chakshustejo Datre Divyaya Bhaskaraya Namaha Om Namaha Karunakaraya Amrutaya Om Namah Suryaya Om Namo Bhagavate Suryaya Tejase Namaha Khecharaya Namaha Mahate Namaha Rajase Namaha Tamase Namaha Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mruchorma Amrutangamaya Ushno Bhagavan Suchirupaha Hamso Bhagavan Suchirapratirupaha Ya Imam Chakshushtutiim Vidyam Brahmano Nityamadhite Satavya Akshirogo Bhavati Satasya Kule Andho Bhavati Ashtau Brahmanan Grahayitva Vidya Siddhir Bhavati Grini Surya Aditya. Now, there is an incredible amount of contemplation in the context of what I just chanted, that Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, Mruchorma Amrutangamaya. These mantras come from an Upanishad called Chakshusha Upanishad, which is invoking the Surya in the eyes to see clearly. Om Sri Sai Ram. Let's close with 9 Samastaloka. Samastaloka Sukino Bhavantu. 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 Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Jai Sai Ram. We'll convene tomorrow again at 6.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
Jai
Thank you. Thank you, Shekhar.
Ram, thank you very much.